So thank you everybody for waiting. I know we said 6 o'clock, but the reason we do 6:30 is everybody's on standard time. All right, in my family we call it Indian Standard Time. Which means I got to tell my wife if we have to go somewhere at 9 p.m. to be ready the day before at 2 p.m. And then we make it there 15 minutes late, but we're still fashionably late. So thanks everybody for coming. My name is Ron Chinzer. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service, and we have a team of people here today. So I'll ask the other officers if they don't mind just introducing yourself. Dale, if you don't mind.
Hi, buddy. From the back. Name's Dale Swift, from 33 Division, neighborhood officer in the Parkway Forest area. And I'm with this initiative for the next 5 weeks, just learning and giving input. And yeah, so glad to be here. And thanks everyone for being here as well.
Thank you. Actually, Rico. Rico is not a police officer, but I'll allow Rico to introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Rico King, filmmaker from out of Houston, Texas, and I'm here learning about the neighborhoods initially, and now I'm part of the program.
Yeah, and Rico and Dale both be speaking a little bit later about themselves, and you'll learn more about some of the amazing things that they both have done and are continuing to do to help us in the city. So that's the police officers in the Toronto Police Service. The reason we bring it up and the reason we talk about it is the highlight of what I'll be talking about today is really the value of different perspectives and what the solution is. And what is the solution to the problem? The problem is gangs and gangs violence, right? So I'll ask you here, what brought you out today? I know I've spoken to a few of you, but what really brought you out here today? Was it a personal experience? Was it curiosity? Was it wanting to learn more? Was it that you've been impacted by it or somebody you know was a victim of gang violence? Yeah, I think the one of the things you said that's really impactful is when we look at gangs and gang violence, sometimes the lens just becomes of the gang member. And the other part that gets missed is what happens to the victims of gang violence? What happens to those families and those communities, those schools that are terribly impacted by it? Just 2 weeks ago, there was a 15-year-old kid, by all accounts, absolutely innocent, being a kid, murdered in the middle of the day after school. And look at the impact on that outside of just the obvious being the family. Look at the schools. Look at the communities. Look at those people that take that bus route. Look at the potential witnesses. And we look at gang violence, the most difficult thing, and it's something I'll share with you, which is where we've really struggled with as police officers, because it is a struggle, is you have to sit on this perfect line of balance. And that balance is understanding the value of the person that becomes a gang member, and then once they cross that threshold, what about the value of the victims of that person if it doesn't get addressed? So when you're dealing with gangs and gang violence today, the perspective to have here is not just your perspective, but also to have an open perspective to all angles and all impacts and understanding where you fit in and what you can do towards a solution. And solution is the key word. This is our 25th town hall, and we've always kept them solutions focused. All of us know what the problems were in the past. That's not a hidden secret. We know what the problems are, not just with the police, but we know what the problems are with the schools, with the criminal justice system, the legal system, the jails, and the communities and the families that ultimately produce people that become gang violence, or gang members, I should say, that commit violent crimes. We know that. The purpose of these conversations is to not only highlight that, but also focus on what do we do next? What do we do next? These town halls are not effective or efficient or worthwhile if we start becoming divisive. With this integrated gang prevention task force, by raise of hands, who's here has heard of it before? A few people, right? A few people have been out here a few times. That's where you know of it from. But generally, it's not mainstream. I'll tell you why it's not mainstream is this started 3 years ago. And when it started 3 years ago, we looked at the Gun and Gang Task Force. And every year you can see there's 2 or 3 major projects where sometimes you're reading the newspaper, project whatever, right? You add in a cool name to the back of it, and it'll say, 20 different police services came together. We went out, we did search warrants, we seized hundreds of guns, arrested hundreds of people, laid thousands of charges. The problem we have with that is we are not adapting and evolving quick enough to match the speed of which gangs and gang violence is growing. It's not that we're not efficient at what we do. We're good at what we do. We're just not good enough. We can't catch up. They're changing too quick. So when that all became the highlight for us, we said, man, we got to expand this strategy a little bit more, and let's take a look at the unique opportunities we have as police officers. And the unique opportunities we have is we have them at a cusp. We have them at a cusp when we have them isolated. And them being gang members, the violent gang members. And in those moments, we have hidden moments of motivation where we should be looking at how do we facilitate the exit of a gang member? In other words, how do we get a gang member out of a gang? And that became the question that we were posed, or the problem statement that I brought forward to myself and Jason 3 years ago. And for that, we spent a lot of time looking into, is there an answer here? And one of the first things we did is we stayed away from conventional wisdom, being, look, conventional wisdom is when you think you have a solution for a problem. So I'll ask you here, for any of us who used to have those old school TVs where you had to get up and turn the dial on it, right? When your TV was not working, what did you do?
You jumped.
You jumped, or what else? Did anybody ever slap the side of the TV? Did it ever work? Sometimes if you knew your TV well enough.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we call conventional wisdom. Means we put a whole bunch of trial and error on that TV, and we hit it, and then eventually it worked. And we'd have to coach everybody else and say, no, you gotta go up there. You gotta hike your pants up 2 inches. You gotta take your arm past your shoulder. You gotta hit it on the top right corner, and then you have to coach people too. Well, we didn't have the time for that, right? Yes, ma'am.
Is this from 2 years ago, these statistics?
No, those statistics are cited. I believe those ones in the past are from either 2012 or 2014. All right, so those statistics on the sheet, which I'll get to at the end, they're all academically sourced.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is that what you talked about bullying, hold on to that for a second because we're going to come back to it, and then I want to draw on you for that experience because it's going to be valuable in the story we tell today. So give me 1 second, all right?
Same idea, it's a gang.
It is.
From
Well,
five with grade three.
is it? Give me 1 second, sir. I'll get back to you.
Sure.
All right. So conventional wisdom, hitting that TV on the side, it might work for some of us who really know our TV well, but who here knows a gang enough to know exactly where to hit it to fix it? Nobody. Neither do we. So we looked all over the world. We did something called benchmarking. We looked at every major city comparable to the city of Toronto, and there's not a lot of them. And what makes Toronto unique is the absolute diversity. Okay, we are a mosaic of cultures and religious beliefs and ethnic beliefs. But here's the thing that really never gets highlighted is that's beautiful and it's absolutely awesome, but diversity comes from the word divide. And if you look at Toronto, we have a little Chinatown, we have a little Italy, we have a little Portugal. And sometimes what happens is we kind of sit in these silos and we don't really cross communicate. We don't really adopt each other's values. So Toronto became a very difficult city to assess in terms of violent crime and some of the stuff that's happening here. But we looked in places all over Canada first, particularly and specifically for, does anybody have anything that works, or what's called evidence-based, that already works to solve the problem we have or the solution we wanted to develop, which is, how do you get a gang member out of a gang? All over Canada, there's nobody that has this done.
What creates the gang then?
Sorry? Oh, we're gonna talk about this. Give me 1 second. We're gonna get right to that. That's the next slide, or 2 slides from now. So first thing was we looked all over Canada, no answer. All over North America, no answer. All over South America, no answer. All over United Kingdom, no answer. But in the process of trying to find the solution to a single question, what we did come across was hundreds of solutions that need to occur at the same time. There's not one thing that can solve an 18-year-old violent gang member overnight to fix it, because the problem isn't that simple. So there's 3 things we have to look at first and foremost. Imagine we're a team here today, and the question we have is, we need to get a gang member out of a gang. So we're gonna work as a team to figure this out. All right, so the first thing we have to look at is, well, what is a gang? So I'll ask you in this room, if I were to ask you particularly, what is the purpose of a gang? What is it? And there's no right or wrong answer here. Everything's just open. Yes, sir, 100%. So those are all reasons, but look at the purpose. So for us, we have to be real objective. For example, this community here, by raise of hands, who lives in this community or within a 5-kilometer stretch? And by raise of hands, are there gangs in your neighborhood? Right. And there's drug deals and there's activity. And I'll ask you this, is there a basketball court nearby? No. No? Some people say yes, right? Let's say it's August. Let's say it's August, and I go to that basketball court, and there's 10 kids playing on that basketball court, and those 10 kids are lost, they're depressed, they're looking for attention, they don't feel like they have any control, they don't have money, and they're playing basketball. Is that a gang? No, it's not, and it's not fair to assume that, all right, because the 99.99% of the people living in that community are not even affiliated to gangs. So we have to look at, strategically, what type of behavior stipulates the definition of a gang. And it's this, all over the world, what gangs do in common is they do these 3 things. All right? They collect money, they deal drugs, and they control a territory. So those same 10 kids playing basketball on the basketball court, unless they're doing anything like this or anything related out of this, because gangs do a lot of things, not just these things, but we have to look at a group of people. Well, now we're looking at something a little bit different. So what are the other crimes gangs do? Because they do much more than just deal drugs. Purse snatching, which is known as a robbery, right? Everybody's okay with robbery? What other things do gang members do? Prostitution in what respect?
Pimping.
Initiating their female members.
Pimping, initiating female members. So you're looking at some sex offenses? Horrible, horrible things. Pimping was already mentioned. And what else? What is the worst thing? You look at the newspaper. We just had a federal election not too long ago, and we had the leaders from every major political party. And for the first time that I can ever remember, there was a question that had to do with what?
Guns.
And gangs. And every major federal leader was asked, what are you going to do about the gun and gang violence across the country? Right now we look at guns and gangs, and why is that such a hot topic? What do you see in the newspaper every day almost in the city of Toronto? Shootings, killings, right? 2 or 3 shootings every day. And what's the worst thing that happens from a shooting? Somebody dies. Or what do we call that when somebody dies? Murder.
Family member, family member, they get murdered.
Yeah, so murder. So when we look at a bunch of crimes, we can associate them back to gang membership. We can associate them back to something outside of this. But these 3 need to exist. So the first thing is, what is a gang and what are the core activities we're looking at in a group of people? We got it. Control territory, collect debt, and deal drugs. And the second part is this, exactly. Who joins a gang? So you were given a laminated card when you guys came in here, right? And this became a topic of conversation. So if I asked you here now, if you were to describe a gang member to me, all right, and we're gonna play a game here, and it's a game, but it's also a project, and we got to figure out the solution to this, all right?
Or you could get a free gun.
Free gun?
Somebody would think, oh, wow, I never had one of those. I'm
Potentially.
becoming a leader.
But here, we're gonna play this game, all right? I'm gonna take this bottle cap, I'm gonna put it in my pocket, and check this out. So, we're gonna work together as a team. Are we all on the same page? We're all here for a solution? Yes?
Do it.
Yeah, we're all here. Perfect. Okay. So look, I got this magic pill in my pocket. It's a beautiful pill. All right. And this magic pill, we're gonna find a gang member today. In the next hour, we got a timeline. We got to make this happen. We don't have time to sit around for 2 years and figure this out. We got 1 hour. We have to go to an intersection in the city of Toronto. We have to find somebody who's a gang member. We're gonna give them this bottle cap. They're gonna swallow it. We're gonna change their life. All right. They are going to be multi-millionaires. They're going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to be focused. They're going to be a role model, mentor. They're going to have such an impact on the community that they're in. They're going to build a statue after this guy or girl. So much so that this person goes, everybody in the world says, oh my God, this person made it. They were a gang member. Look at their life. And we were responsible in doing this flip and the switch. Not only that, this person succeeds, excels, and then comes back to the neighborhood there at their front and says, listen, I'm going to grow the local economy. I'm going to create thousands of jobs. I'm going to change the lives of tens of thousands of kids. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, to have that, if I could do that right now, I'd be done for life. I'd be very fulfilled in my life. But we got to do this together as a team. So number 1, where do we go in the city of Toronto? We have an hour. Give me an intersection where we're going to find a gang member.
Gallon Park.
Pelham Park. You said Young Street. Young Street's large street. Young and Shepherd? Jane and Finch.
And John Queen King.
John Queen King, so looking at downtown. John Garland, right? Whereabouts in John Garland? Yeah, so Jamestown is the area that a lot of people talk about down there, right? Jane and Driftwood. So we got a lot of neighborhoods, right? We're looking for gang members. We got a lot of good neighborhoods.
Weston and Lawrence.
Weston and Lawrence. All right, let's pick. Okay, so there's a couple that keep popping up. Let's pick Jane and Weston, Weston and Lawrence, or Jane and Finch. Which one are we gonna go with? Weston and Lawrence, Jane and Finch. Okay, but raise your hands, Jane and Finch. Raise your hands. And then raise your hands, Weston and Lawrence. Oh, that's down the pipe. We're going to go with Weston and Lawrence, more local for you guys. Okay, so Weston and Lawrence. Now we're down to 45 minutes. All right, we spent 15 minutes figuring out where we're going to go. We're a team. There's probably, 60 people in here? That's great. And I got this pill, and we're going to go find this person. Now, you got to describe to me the person we're going to give this pill to. And we're going to start off with the first basic thing. Is it a male or a female?
Male.
Everybody's good with a male? Yeah, perfect. And how old is this male roughly?
20 to 30 years old.
That's a big gap. Let's bring it down. 18? Okay, 18, 20,
18 to 22.
18 to 22.
I'd
Okay,
say 15, 16.
15, 16. Okay, so who agrees with 15, 16? Man, we're going to change our life, 15, 16. Who agrees with 18 to 22? Okay, we're going to go with 15 to 16. So 15, 16-year-old male. Perfect. All right, now we're down to 30 minutes, so time is crunch. We've got to give them this pill. We're going to change a lot of people's lives. All right, so we got 15 to...
Blue or red bandana.
Oh, now we're getting to clothing, which is what I like. All right, so we're going to describe this person top down. So tell me about their hair. Do they have a handsome shine like me?
Baseball cap.
Baseball cap?
It's shiny, man.
It is shiny. I just shaved it. Baseball cap
Baseball cap.
and
Backwards.
baseball cap backwards.
Red or blue
Hoodie.
blue bandana.
We got to pick one. We got to pick one type of bandana. What color? Red or blue?
Red.
Weston and Lawrence. Give me blue. Weston and Lawrence. She says. She said, "Well, blue." Like
Pants to the knees.
pants to the knee, so low pants. You said a bandana, so backward. What type of? Is there a sports team on the baseball cap, or anything, or is it just plain? Raptors. Okay, we got a Raptors ball cap. Yeah, he says New York. We're gonna go with Raptors because I love the Raptors. All right. So we have the Raptors. We have a 15-year-old male. He's got a bandana, a blue bandana on. All right. And then does he have any facial hair?
Well, the pants could be army pants too.
Army pants, but down to the knees. All right. Okay. And then let's talk about shirt and jacket. Anything like that they're wearing on top? We're down to 15 minutes, so we gotta hammer down on this description of the person. There's a lot of people on the intersection. A lot of people. I gotta make sure I get to the right people. Black hoodie,
Baggy clothing.
black hoodie, baggy clothing. What about shoes? What type of shoes? Dress shoes? Ready for a job interview? Jordans.
There you go. See, there we
Jordans. We're getting, that's great. And then you know what? What
Gold
type
chain,
of gold chain? I was gonna ask you. So jewelry, rings, jewelry, and is there an emblem on the jewelry? Remember, this is a gang member we're looking at. So yes, ma'am. Oh, smart. So they might want to stay low key. So in this case here, we're going to detract no jewelry. It's up to you guys. I'll leave it up to you. This is a team effort.
want jewelry, but they don't want it. They want it to stand up. And
They want to show. All right, perfect. Now let's go with
But it might not be jewelry too, it could be just a chain.
very much so. We don't know. So okay, we got pretty good description, right? Now what about cell phone? How many does this person have? One cell phone?
Four.
Two cell phones? And why would they have two cell phones?
Burners.
A burner and a regular. So for those of you who aren't familiar with burners, would you mind, ma'am, explaining what a burner
What
is?
is it, Bruno?
They throw them away when they.
A burner is
Give me
a
1
cell
second,
phone
sir.
that doesn't have a SIM card in it.
I think a lot
So,
of
say I'm the drug dealer, all of my customers will have that number for the
Oh.
burner.
And then do they have?
Trace.
Yeah.
And then do you throw the phone out after you use it?
Well, if the police are catching up.
All right. So you have they have two phones, a regular phone and a burner phone. And do they have headphones in?
Sometimes.
No headphones. Sometimes. Do they have two in or one in? Earpiece. And then what's play? Is there music playing in that earpiece?
No.
No music.
No music.
Perfect.
Be aware of their surroundings.
I like it. I like tactical, right? They want to be aware, but they want to be ready to go if they got to be ready to go. All right, perfect. So we got a pretty good description. We're down to 5 minutes.
What is the cost of a burner itself?
Yeah. Are you, ma'am? I have to warn you. If you're interested in becoming a drug dealer, I gotta boys. We're gonna have to get her out of here.
Hey, who gave them that phone?
But I don't know, they probably bought
Was
it.
that
Yeah.
already a gang?
You
Yeah.
can buy them
You can buy
anywhere.
them anywhere.
I've
Get 'em
never,
anywhere.
I've
Get 'em
never
gas
seen
Best,
one.
Best Buy.
Yeah.
That's much.
Gas station. Okay.
Not Walmart, well,
Right? Oh.
Okay. Listen. All that acquisition doesn't even matter. All right. So
And
look.
we're going to that particular person.
Okay, look, we're going to say 15 to 18-year-old male in Weston and Lawrence. He's got a backwards Raptors hat. He's got a blue bandana. He's got a black hoodie, camo pants down to his knees, Jordans on, no jewelry, but two cell phones. One's a burner phone. There's only one thing I'm missing. We got 5 minutes left. What's his skin color?
I would like to get in.
Black.
Back
Why
and
don't
forth.
just why don't just shoot him because he created him?
Ah, so that's the point.
Why don't just kill him because he created him?
Yeah. So explain that a little more for me.
Media.
Yes. First off,
you're probably right, yeah.
yeah. So first off,
Nobody cares
Um,
about them.
I really want to thank all of you for participating, and I want to thank you especially for saying black so quick, because the reason I put skin color towards the end is I gotta squeeze that out of people, right? Everybody gets super uncomfortable when we talk about skin color, even though I had a magical solution to change not only this person's life but thousands of people's lives, neighborhoods, and communities. There was a hard hesitation on skin color, not by you guys today, thank you, but by many communities. And yes, ma'am, no. And I'll tell you the reason why we do this, all right? And the reason why it's been so effective is I did this on a whim one day at another event, and the audience, the participants, the partner groups, painted the same picture. And I did it out of curiosity. I said, well, I want to see what happens here, right? Because we know what the research is and we know the actuality too. But I really want to see what is the perspective from the majority of the world, not based on anything else. Because if you look around this room, this is Toronto in itself, all right? There is a multitude of diversity in this room. There's a multitude of beliefs, multitude of experiences in a lot of different age categories. But collectively, as a room, I did this with another group, and when I painted back the picture, and the picture was the exact same as what you painted, I got called a racist. But I never painted the picture, and the point of this was, and the reason why I bring this up and to paint out how garbage that perspective is because that is not the truth. And the problem is, unless we get the truth out there and squeeze it out there from what people actually believe, we cannot redefine what we should be looking at. Because if you're looking at that as the problem, if I were to go to Weston Lawrence right now and I found somebody like that, how many kids would look like that right now in Weston Lawrence? Lots. How many kids look like that in Jane and Finch? How many look like that in Galloway? Kingston Road and Morningside? Parkdale. You go to every neighborhood, north, south, east, west, there are thousands of kids that look like that, and I will bet $1 million that 99.99% of those kids that we stop and talk to and try to give this bill are not even gang involved. Then the big problem with that is, unless we get it out in terms of who we're looking for, to help, we're going to be potentially making the problem greater. If we were just to go and engage black kids in these neighborhoods and say, we're going to get you out of gang, one, it's insulting. Two, it's not true. And three, how long, for those of you who've been in a relationship before, anybody ever been in a relationship where their significant other said, you're a cheater. When you go out, you always cheat on me. And you are as loyal as they come, like my friend Dale. He's super loyal. He's super loyal. But how long? I know friends like that have been in relationships with people and they've said, man, they always think I'm cheating on them. I'm just going to do it. And the reality is, as human beings on a very relatable scale, if we start calling kids like that all over the city gang members and we're here to help you and we're going to cater things to that population, is there a potential we're going to create a bigger problem? And the truth is, yes, there is. Actually, that's been proven as being a problem in the United States. And the U.S. is very different from us. And while we're easily influenced by the media in the United States, we are a different country. All right, we have Rico here from the United States. He'll tell you first off, we're a very different company. All the Indians here are very handsome like myself. And that's one of the biggest indicators.
But it goes back to like with the mafia. Remember the mafia?
Yes.
Okay, for you. And so all Italians were mafia because we were Italians,
Yes. But there's many types of mafia
Yeah.
now.
right? Being Italian, that's what.
Well, the
Everybody assumed
Chinese
that was
had
a
their
mafia
own too.
because I
Oh,
was Italian.
look what's happening right now to.
Chinese had their own
Yeah.
mafia or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Happened in
organized
Chicago
crime.
and New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah.
Going to the restaurants,
There is.
to
Yeah.
the stores.
But to bring, listen,
Yeah.
sorry, to bring this back to the point.
Yeah.
The point was that is initially when we had to determine this. So one, we knew what a gang does. Or we have to have those core elements to a group of people. What do they actually do? Not a group of people playing basketball
Fear.
or hockey or anything.
Putting fear
We know
into
that.
people.
Well, the second thing is we have to learn is, well, who should we be targeting in terms of hoping to stop this from becoming a problem? And we had conversations like this with a bunch of people all over, from jail guards to police officers to lawyers to community members. And we said, hey, what is a gang member? Like, who should we be going after? And everybody painted the same picture. And that became very clear that, hey, man, that is not the case. That's not the right thing to do. What we did find was those laminated cars in front of you, they're called gang risk factors. In 2007, Public Safety Canada, after conducting massive research all over the world, produced these things called risk factors. And if you look at them, there's 36 risk factors. The more of those boxes you check off, the more likely you are to become a gang member. And if you look on there, nothing has to do with your sex, your age, your race, your ethnicity, your religious beliefs. That has nothing to do with anything. These are deep social and psychological issues that never get addressed from the age of 0 all the way up. So we had an objective lens to look at who should we be targeting. And the targeting had nothing to do with what you look like. Nothing. It had to do with effectively, where are you coming from? Not being the neighborhood, but what family are you coming from? What are the issues within your family, and has that scale? And I'll give you a story now, which is a bit of a deeper story. But before I get to that, so number one, we know what a gang is. Number two, we know what happens to somebody to become a gang member, or those risk factors. So we have two objective lenses outside of our experiences. Number three was, how do we end up in your neighborhood? Has anybody seen this map before? This is a map of the city of Toronto. Ma'am, what is it? So take a look at this map, all right? This map here is the city of Toronto broken down into 140 different neighborhoods. We didn't break it up. The city of Toronto did. In 2015, they conducted an intensive audit of the entire city, and they based it on what was called equitable scores. And all that means is they looked at a lot of different things in each of the neighborhoods in the city of Toronto, and they want to look at things like, what does the family look like at home? Are there one or two parents? What is the average median income or salary of those households? How many of them were born in Canada? How many were not? How many of them had a post-secondary education? How many did not? What was their access to economic opportunity, being high or good paying jobs? And also, what was their access to routes to high income areas? Subway, TTC, bus. What was the access point to get in the way? And what they found was 31 neighborhoods in the city of Toronto were determined to be low equitable neighborhoods, or what we call now neighborhood improvement areas. The benefit to that is, starting this year, which has happened in January, they're pumping in hundreds of $millions in investments and programs and rebuilding these neighborhoods to get them back to an acceptable level of equity. What that means, I don't know. You got to ask them. But it was a great starting point for us to say,
Thank you.
where should we, I don't know. But we got a great starting point. And the great starting point was we said, oh, look at these 31 neighborhoods. And we did a bit of a cross analysis. And the cross analysis says we wanted to look at, what do we know as the police in terms of where the gang members live? Where do they commit the most violent crimes?
East and west.
Now, if I were to take a look at the neighborhood improvement areas, being the lowest equitable neighborhoods or the poorest neighborhoods in the city by all accounts, and I were to look at gang crime, I could almost put these maps on top of each other. And that is not by accident, that is not a coincidence. If you look at the risk factor, social disorganization just means that your environment sometimes matter more than the individual in terms of promoting criminal or poor behavior. And this cross comparison and analysis, that was a big bingo for us to say, this is where we need to focus. And that's why we're in your neighborhood. So for the first 2 years, we spent a lot of time on research, consulting, running a few pilot projects, dealing with almost 70 gang members in efforts of trying to get them out of a gang. And unfortunately, out of the 70 we dealt with, approximately, we only had success with one of them. And I'll give you a story. Sorry guys, if you don't mind, please. Thank you so much. So here we go. So we got the area. We know what a gang is. Deal drugs, control territory, collect debt. We know what to look out for in terms of the 36 risk factors. All right, and now we know why we're in your neighborhoods. Your neighborhoods need the most attention in regards to developing healthy, successful, and positive people. It really needs it. So here I'll give you a story about those risk factors and one of our gang members. And I'm going to blend two stories into one in the interest of protecting the person I'm talking about, as well as highlighting a good and a negative. All right, the positive and the negative of our experiences after 3 years of trying to figure this out in the field and trying to work with families and gang members and to share the frustrations that lie in with the risk factors. So those risk factors you have, they're split up into 5 categories. Okay, 5 categories, 36 risk factors. Anybody here who's good at math and problem solving? I'll give you this. So we were tasked with one sentence. The sentence was, how do you get a gang member out of a gang? We have to figure this out. And we quickly found 36 risk factors over 5 categories. So here's the math to it. If 5 things, we're just going to work with 5. If 5 things give you a problem, how many different combinations of 5 things can you make? So let's say these are 5 different balls. White, yellow, blue, brown, orange. And I said, look, these things always give us a problem. And any combination of these give us a problem. How many different combinations can you make of 5 things? I'll tell you, 3,125. So if I had one solution for a potential mix of 3,125 problems, I would be a billionaire. I would not be here. I'd be on a cruise ship, partying with my wife, but I would tell her we have to leave yesterday so she could show up today on time. All right, now we expand that further and we look at the 36 individual risk factors, and that number is astronomical. It's 150 unvigatillion, which means it's a number 150 with 69 zeros after it. So the problem became large for us, but we had to bring it back to a workable scale. And what that workable scale is, these risk factors are broken down into 5 categories. We're going to go over those categories because they happen at different times in life, and I can explain to you the biggest indicator to look out for. So we had this one young man was referred to us. Myself and Jason, he was the first ever gang member we dealt with. And he was 15 years old and he got arrested for trafficking in cocaine. He got arrested, and a police officer who we'd spoken to, and Jason and I had spent 6 months, we'd gone and talked to over 2,000 frontline police officers, explained these risk factors, and we told them, look, if you come across a kid or a family or anybody that's on the path to gang involvement and you have a relationship and you can say to them, look, you don't have to do this, we got something else for you, can you call us and let us know? So within a week, we got referred this one kid, 15 years old, arrested for trafficking in cocaine. We go down and we go talk to him. And not only do we talk to him, but we include his parents into it. His mom, dad wasn't around. And together we painted a picture of what's happening that's absolutely in line with the research and the evidence. And I'll give you that story. So from the age of 0 to 6, the family risk factors are the most apparent and most influential, right? And particularly at the age of 3, when you have an uncontrollable child, that should be an indicator that something is not healthy here. I'm not saying that kid's a gang member at 3. What I'm saying is that's an indicator something's up. All right, I'm not talking about the kid who pees on your toilet seat and doesn't eat the peanut butter and jelly sandwich with crust on it. I'm talking about the one who punches other kids, who bites people, who kicks things, who no matter what will just always give you a problem. And that's this kid. So mom explains to us that, listen, that this kid at the age of 3, he is one of 5 kids. He is the middle kid. Mom is a single mother living in community housing. She's like, this guy was a pain in my butt from the get-go, or from 3. And here's the other side of it. Psychologically, and I want you to think back for yourself. Look at some of your behaviors today. So at night when you go home tonight, and we all do this, sometimes more often than not, at night when you go home, before you go to bed, and you think to yourself all the things you regret that you did in the day, all the things you said to somebody that might have hurt them, you know, those little secrets you keep with you. I want you to think back from 0 to 7. And the reason why I bring that up is that's this kid. 0 to 7, we all operate biologically in our brain and behavior at what's called the theta wave, which is a state of hypnosis. What we're doing subconsciously is we're collecting data on what we need to survive, not to succeed. How do I survive in this world? How do I live? How do I eat? So this kid already at the age of 3 who's uncontrollable for his own issues. Picture this. Those of us who've had a 3-year-old, raise your hands. Who's ever had a 3-year-old, right? So 3-year-old. So 3-year-old, I want you to picture this. Your 3-year-old and your other kids are playing in your bedroom. Okay, you can hear everything. You're washing the dishes. Everything's good. What happens when you don't hear them? Something's cooking. I like that. And you're in the kitchen. There's nothing on the stove.
No,
So what do we all do,
Oh,
right?
But the kids are up to something. My kids hated me for that.
Yep.
Because I was too aware of what they're gonna plan on doing.
Mm.
And mom knows too much, and
Mom knows we got to be quiet.
it didn't work.
So that's this kid. So mom
But
says,
they turned out successfully well, thank you.
lucky for them,
Yeah.
right?
But
So
I was gonna say, maybe that child is autistic.
Wait.
And the mother doesn't know.
I'll tell you the rest. So this kid, 3 years old, he's upstairs. Mom hears nothing. She shuts off the water. She listens real quietly. She walks along the back of the door, and she goes in. She kicks the door open like a cop. All right, and boom, she sees it. These guys are up to no good. So she yells at this kid. I want you to imagine you're a 3-year-old. All right, mom is struggling. She's working 2 jobs. She's hustling her butt off. She does not have the time or energy to feed you what you need. So now he starts to connect that, hey, this type of behavior gets me kind of what I want. But he's 3. He's not making a conscious decision. He's not writing in a journal, this works. He's just figuring out what's happening. So now we got family, right? Then he moves on from family, and at the age of 6, he goes to school. Any teachers here? Nobody? Teachers are amazing to me. I love them. I know they're on strike, so I figured they would be here. I figured they'd be here eating the free donuts because they're not getting paid. So this kid goes to school, and I want you to think about that behavior, right? 3 years old, the only time he gets attention from mom is when he does naughty things. Then he goes to 3, and the biggest indicator at the age of 6 in school is school failure, which is grade 1. And some people say, Toronto, you cannot fail. Ontario, you can't fail a grade. Look, they just pass everybody, and it's true to a point. But here's the difference. There's a massive difference in succeeding and passing. This guy passes, he doesn't succeed. And who's the replacement for mom at school? A teacher, right? So this kid now, he's in the school at the age of 6. He spent 6 years realizing that, hey man, when I do garbage things, I get the attention I want. He gets to school, he does the same thing. I always talk about it. I said, look man, when I was in grade 1, I still remember 2 kids would just take my sandwich out of my sandwich bag and just punch it in front of me. All right? I don't know why. And I always wait to pull them over one day, but I have not yet found them.
But that's who you are today.
Ha, thankfully. So anyways, that's this kid, and what happens is he becomes naughty in school. Teacher has to worry about 25 other kids. He gets a separate teaching assistant. He gets pulled aside. He passes. He doesn't succeed. Now with him, again, we're reinforcing the idea that when I do naughty things, I'm going to get the attention I want. Now here's the downside to that. He doesn't develop any social skills, any productive social skills. Not only that, he has no concept or idea of what a healthy relationship looks like. All right, now all of a sudden, this kid becomes 9, and mom tells us, just like we know this, mom says at the age of 9, he lives in community housing in the city of Toronto. I know myself, when I was 9, I was playing outside by myself, and I just had to be home before the streetlights came on. Or else my dad was going to whoop me. So I had to hustle home. Well, the mom says to this kid at the age of 9, you know what, man, you've been a pain in my butt for 9 years. Go outside and dump your energy. So he goes outside, right? Forced, go outside. So he goes outside, and now this kid's in the wild. He's in the wild on his own for the first time, and this kid who's never connected to anybody in a healthy environment comes across another kid while playing outside. And I'll ask you, this kid, more like him or less like him? More like him. So now for the first time on his own, he comes across another kid who was naughty at 3, school failure at 6, and now at 9 he was told, go dump your energy. And for the first time this guy goes, oh my God, I found my friends. And that friend says, man, I got some more friends. Come over here. And now this kid is pumped up, all right? At the age of 9, he's pumped up and he comes home. And what he does, comes home and he's happy, and mom says, oh my God, finally this 9-year spell of a naughty kid is, I'm gonna get some peace and quiet. And the kid comes home and he's pumped up, he cannot wait to go outside the next day. And then he comes home one day and he says, Mom, my bike got stolen. Or sorry, he says, Mom, I want a bike because all my friends got a bicycle and they like to go out to the store and I really want to do it. And Mom says, you know what, she struggles. So she goes, you know what, I'm gonna work an extra shift. This guy, he's finally changing. I want to encourage this. I want to see where this goes. So she works a couple extra shifts, manages to get this guy a bicycle. This guy's out with his friends on his bike at 9 years old. They go to the corner store to buy some candy. Comes out, where's the bike? Gone, right? So comes home. And I want you to imagine this. You're in the shoes of the mom. You worked all these extra shifts for this 9-year-old for 9 years, caused all your hair to go gray. For a guy, you might have gone bald. Who knows? And then they come home after you hustled for weeks to buy them the bicycle, and they come home and they say, Mom, my bike got stolen. What's your response? And listen, I'm not going to arrest you because it's just it's a response.
Freak out.
Freak out. What does freak out mean to you?
Being yelling.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Why didn't you lock the bike?
Reasonable things for that mother, right? So mom does exactly that. She says to this kid, you piece of garbage, you had one job. You can't even do this right. You know how much I did for you? You don't even appreciate this. You know about. So this kid feels terrible. Terrible, right? 1, he can't go hang out with his buddies. 2, mom blasted him. 3, it's not his fault. He had no idea. He's a 9-year-old kid. Nobody ever told this guy, you got to go lock up your bike. He just thought, oh, la-di-da-di, I'm 9, I'm gonna go play in the hood. Somebody took his bike and took off. So mom feels guilty like all of us. Look at that. I was gonna say you're 23, man. You look good. You look good. But anyways, we moved back. So this kid's bike gets stolen. Mom hustles again because for those of us who yell at our kids for stupid things, right? We lose our control and they go to bed. How guilty do you feel? You're terrible, right? I'm the same way. I'll yell at my son and my daughter, and then my son mainly, not my daughter as much, because she's my angel. But my son, I'll give him a hard time all day. And when he goes to bed, I always pop into his room at night, and I still give him a dirty look. But inside, I'm like, oh, man, my little boy. And then he falls asleep at night, and I give him a hug and a kiss, and I say, I'm so sorry, right?
When he's asleep though, right?
Yeah, of course. He can never know I have weakness, right? I don't know if that's healthy, but it is what it is. So anyways, so this kid, mom feels bad for him. She manages to buy him another bicycle. Same thing happens. Here's the interesting part. Both times they call the police. So we show up, and I hate to tell you this, there's no bicycle theft prevention task force. City of Toronto, there's 90 million bicycles in here. The likelihood of you getting your bike back after it's stolen, unless we come across it by accident, you have the serial number, is like slim to none. All right, but here's the thing. So for us as police officers, the priority of that bicycle, and it's not that we don't care about it, it's just we got to deal with things like murders and shootings and robberies all day. So the priority kind of drops for a bicycle, right? But to that family, to that mom, what's the value of that bike? It's like, it's up here. So they have 2 interactions with the police. And in both interactions, they could understand why we couldn't find the bicycle, but they've only had 2 experiences with the police at a very young age when they were the victims of crime. And the mom says, look, something happened to this kid between the age of 11 and 12. What happened was he's out there hanging out with his friends, and at 10 he gets reported missing. Right? He doesn't come home, and mom says, look, I got 4 other kids. I don't know where he is. He hasn't come home. It's past the street lights. We find him around the corner. When we find him around the corner, we find out who his friends are, just for the purpose of if he goes missing again, we know who to call. So we bring him back home, no issue. We just said, oh, I forgot the time. A year later, he goes missing again. This time the police officer's going, thank God for that first report, because the police officers on the way there said, oh, look, he went missing last year. He was at this corner with these friends. They drove by, they found him there. Said, hey, man, come on, we got to take you back home. So by the time they showed up at her house, they already had the kid and said, hey, here he is, man, he was just around the corner. And then at 13, he goes missing again. This time he doesn't come home for a week. But when he goes missing, he's still texting mom, he's still talking to mom, so she's not really overly concerned. She's just like, man, his behavior changed dramatically. And then at 14 and 15, he starts to commit violent offenses. Street robberies, assaults, intimidation, threatening. Now we got him at trafficking cocaine. So as we're talking to him,
Did different friends steal the bike every now and then, or the same guy?
we don't know. So here's the thing at peer group, all right? So in the family, uncontrollable child at 3. At school, failure at 6. At 9, the biggest thing is, what do we call it when a 9-year-old pushes another 9-year-old and takes something from them? Bullying, right? You know what that's called if you're over the age of 12? It's called robbery. So what they're doing, in essence, is we water it down with the word bullying. They're practicing criminal activity. And look what happens. It just gets tolerated. Nobody steps up and says, well, you can't do that. It's bullying. Boys will be boys. Girls will be girls. They're practicing what they're going to do. They're telling you what they're going to do. They're forecasting it for you, saying, hey, I'm practicing now with my friends. And then all of a sudden when it happens at 13 or 14, it's like, wow, this caught us by surprise for some of the cases. No, they showed it to you. They showed it to you. So, at 9, you have child delinquency is what we call it. We took it from the United States because delinquency is just child crime. So then all of a sudden this kid becomes 15, and this is where we have him. And at 15, the biggest indicator is self-admission. We're police officers talking to him. We ask him, are you a gang member? He says, yeah. He lifts up his t-shirt and he shows us the gang that he belongs to. He's not hiding it. And if you're a parent or a concerned adult or relative or caregiver of these kids that you think are gang involved, look at their social media profiles. It's blasted all over there. They are not hiding it. There is no Rubik's Cube to solve here. You just got to look at what's in front of you. So in this case here, he's a self-admitted gang member. And when we look back at it, we asked him, we said, how did you get involved in a gang? And he told us. When he was 12 years old, he was in the neighborhood. And that's the same time he went missing for an extended period of time. At 12, he was in a neighborhood. An OG, which is an old gangster in the neighborhood, or old-time gangster in the neighborhood, somebody who's been around for a while, known as a gang member, sees him in the neighborhood and sees him and recognizes himself. So I was a kid like this once. And he goes over and he talks to the kid and he buys him something small. He gets him McDonald's, gets him a little snack, gets him a bicycle, and slowly he starts to recruit this kid into that lifestyle. Give him some positive attention, some positive male influence. All right, and this kid, he tells him things like, man, you remind me a lot of me when I was your age. And this kid's like, wow, man, who's this guy? Not only that, he's giving me things. And then slowly it escalated and they had him groomed. And what they did is they started him off with small things like, we want you to go and steal something from the store. And then they escalated to, we want you to steal cell phones from females walking in the neighborhood. And then it escalated to, we want you to take these drugs from point A to point B. And that's the stage that we got him at. Now here's the unfortunate part. As much influence as we had with him, and as much as we knew about his history, we lost all form of motivation with him after about 2 weeks. Or he wanted nothing to do with us. And in regards to the mom, we learned a lot, because what we did is on a whim, we ended up going back to the house. We ended up talking to the mom to say, hey man, what happened? Like, how come he's not talking to us anymore? And she said, look man, I don't know what happens. And the reality sunk in that while we had influence on him for about half an hour a week for about 3 or 4 weeks, we're not there the other couple hundred hours a month. He's gone right back to those habits and rituals for his whole life. Who's a coffee drinker here? Raise your hands, right? Coffee drinker every day?
Yeah, every day.
What happens if I tell you, do not drink a coffee tomorrow? How fun are you to deal with?
Not too bad.
Yeah. The reason I bring up coffee is that's the most common thing. And look how much our behavior changes without coffee. Yet we expect this 15-year-old who spent 0 to 15 becoming who he is just to change from a conversation. So when we go back, we talk to his mom and we say, hey man, listen, what are your risk factors? So we have a sheet and we just do a checkoff box. And the mom had more risk factors than the son. All right, and that made sense to us. And I'll tell you why it makes sense. Who here had an immigrant parent or came from another country here? Another country. And were you born here, ma'am? No, where were you born? St. Vincent, right? And St. Vincent, your parents are from there?
Yeah.
How old were you when they came here?
Probably 4.
4?
When my mom came here.
Young, right? And looking back at your mom, how hard was her life?
Very hard.
Difficult, right? And do you ever think to yourself, man, I could do what she did, or there's no way I could do that?
No.
Yeah, I'm the same. Right? We looked at that, and here's the bigger perspective onto that. When I look at my parents, and we talk to people who have parents that had a rough time, I use myself all the time. My parents came from halfway around the world, not even knowing the language, and they did it for me. They came here to struggle, to have their education not even valued here, and they did it for me. And I look at their life, and I go, man, there's no way I could do that. You can't do that to me now. I can't get up and go to another city, let alone another country. I'm situated where I am. But then I look at my kids, and my kids, I complain all the time, they're spoiled. But who's the one spoiling them?
You.
Me. So it made sense to say that this is how it's supposed to be. The mom was worse off than the son. The son's better off than her. And it's called generational process. Right? They're going to get better. Just some people are way behind than where some of us are, and some people are way ahead. And it's not to say one is better than the other. It's to say, we got to play this catch-up game, but we can't stop the process. You can't hold people back to let people catch up. You got to bring them with you. Right? But who is that? And with this kid here, we lost all influence. Yeah, so exactly what you did is fantastic. And I like that you highlighted something, all right? And what the highlight is kind of where we're at now, which is the tolerated behavior. All right, tolerated behavior, and that's a big issue. And I'll give you this. So, guns and gangs, how long have they been in our city? Generations. There's some neighborhoods that have had it for 50 years. Late 70s. There's some neighborhoods here impacted. Now let me ask you this. When did guns and gangs become a problem for the city of Toronto? 80s? Was it really the 80s? Did it get as much attention then as it is right now? Where federal leaders are talking about it.
In the past 3 years.
Past 3 years, right? And let's just be objective about this, being like, let's be transparent about this. What happened for it to garnish so much attention in the city?
Carding, it stopped it.
So that might have been,
That's not the answer completely, but
oh, yes ma'am.
For it to get so much attention, kids start killing kids.
Kids started killing kids. You know what else happened? Media, right? But you know what else happened? You tell me if I'm wrong in my assessment, all right? And we've talked about this intensively to come up with this objective lens. When shootings started happening in places they weren't supposed to happen, it became a problem. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Well,
Right.
when innocent people drive by
Yeah.
shootings in parks, on the street, daylight, that's where.
Daytime shootings in areas they're not supposed to happen. Let's just, Eaton
Huh?
Center,
Eaton
Eaton Center,
Center.
right? Really public areas. Now let's just dissect that sentence I just gave you. When shootings happened in areas they weren't supposed to happen, it became a problem. What's wrong with that sentence?
Not supposed to happen anywhere.
Bingo. Where are they supposed to happen? Nowhere. So for us, the objective lens is, why did we being everybody, not the police, everybody, because the solution is everybody. 0 to 18, that kid, how many interactions did he have outside of the police? How many people passed the buck? Tell me the truth. A lot. You know why? It's somebody else's problem. Somebody else is going to deal with it. So for 40 plus years, it was tolerated in neighborhoods because it was supposed to happen there. Now we got an area. Now we got a problem because it's happening in areas it's not supposed to happen at? Yes, ma'am.
But you also have neighbors who it's like, we don't want to get involved.
Yes.
Because I remember when I grew up, all the neighbors participated.
Of course.
So there was about 7 kids. All the parents knew who was where. And one of the neighbors who had a huge yard, she would come to the parents and she says, this is who I am. If you need to know, here's a reference.
Yeah.
And have the kids come there. But that was our safety zone.
Yeah.
Nothing would happen. And mom, dad, I'm going to so-and-so's house.
So would that be this?
Yes.
Community. And did that have an impact?
Now.
Did it have an impact?
Yes.
1,000,000%. But you said this doesn't happen now, which is exactly the point, right? And the point is, when it becomes a problem in the community one is when there's serious community violence, being daytime shootings, innocent people being shot and killed, shootings that are happening to innocent people. That's a huge problem. And unfortunately, this kid I'm talking about, he's become that. We've lost all motivation on him. We've lost all influence. When he does get arrested, we talk to him and he's super polite. He's not mean. He's not a jerk about it, but he wants nothing to do with us because they've won. All right, now here's the flip to that. We've had one success story, and it was with a very young person, and that's why we won. And we being everybody. It wasn't just the Toronto police. We had a true integrated approach to this. We brought in his school, we brought in his family, we brought in us. We did a wraparound with him, and it was a 12-year-old kid who was on his path to gang involvement. He was very open about it. And when we had determined what worked for him, he just needed a blueprint and mentorship. And we divided him down and we said, hey man, what do you actually want to do with your life outside of this? If there was a genie in a bottle and you rub that genie, what would you want to be? Do you know what he said? So look at a 12-year-old kid who's on a path to gang violence. And I asked him, if I was a genie in a bottle and I can give you a job of your dreams, what do you think he said?
Being a policeman.
No, he said French teacher.
French teacher.
French teacher. And this kid was on the expulsion end of what he had done in the school environment. And when we broke it down and said, a French teacher, he says, yeah. He says, you know what? The French teacher is the only one that says hi to me in the morning. You know, and you talk about impact. You talk about how do we solve this problem? If we wait until it gets to this stage, which is 15 plus, 18 plus, we've all waited too late. And for us as police officers, I am telling you, I am wholeheartedly telling you, we are not the answer to this problem. All right, we've spent 3 years working through this, working with gang members, talking to 20 or 30 different organizations. We've now spoken to over 1,000 community members, 1,000, including ex-gang members, current gang members, survivors of human trafficking, pimps, mothers and families who have lost their child to gang violence, mothers and families who have found their kid dead as a result of gang violence, mothers and families who have had their kids put in jail for gang violence. We have gathered a global perspective, and that global perspective says this is where the police come into play. Okay, our job in this and our role in this is to find the most violent people and arrest them. But we don't want that to happen in the first place. The idea is exactly what you said. We need to start empowering people in the communities to say, this is totally fixable for you on your end.
I have a question.
Yeah. So our gang prevention strategy, that one sentence 3 years ago of get a gang member out of a gang, once we spent 3 years figuring this out and saying, wait a minute, man, there is no answer to this from us. There has to be a collective answer. We expanded our strategy to 4 key pillars. Number 1 is education, all right? Education is the key to everything. And I mean, not just us learning from what the books and the academics and the research in the field says all over the world, but also engaging communities to say, what's happening on your end? Like what's happening in each neighborhood? What I will tell you is every major city blanket strategies. This is our 25th neighborhood we've been in. No 2 neighborhoods have been the same. What might work here might not work somewhere else and vice versa. So that has to be intensive case managed and what works for your neighborhood. What are your impacts and where do we drop in the right things that work? So education is number 1 for us, not only on sharing what we learn, but also consistently hearing back to say, we got to keep this as a progressive cycle, always learning and relearning, learning and relearning. The second part to that is prevention. So how do we stop kids from getting in gangs in the first place, right? Evidence-based, that works the best all over the world when it's for the category of 0 to 9. If you want to look at strategies that actually work to mitigate those risk factors, the protective factors, you implement the programs between 0 to 9. The second part of us, so we have education, prevention. The third one is intervention. And the reason why intervention is one of the problems with gang membership is that you are a significantly higher rate to reoffend, which means you're just going to constantly commit crimes. You're going to constantly recruit other kids. There's thousands of gang members or people that are gang involved within the prison system and the justice system that can't be ignored. They need to be aggressively engaged to mitigate those risk factors going forward. We did a gap analysis in August of 2018, which means we looked at social services on the east and the west end of the city. And we said, where's the breakdown? Where's the breakdown in service delivery and people who need it? And what we'd found, one of the biggest highlights was that if you're an 18-year-old male who gets out of jail, there's nothing for you. There's not one program for you if you're an 18-year-old male that's out of jail. What we know roughly, approximately, is 90% of gang members in Canada are males. All right, so you have a significant portion of the population that's criminally involved that has no successful intervention strategies. So intervention is the third pillar. And the last one is where we sit. 15 and up, what works? The number one way across the world, not even debatable, to combat gang violence is arresting the violent people. All right, now where we promote organizational change and where we promote adjusting how we do things is this. There was a study done of a gang in Los Angeles, 300 gang members, and what they realized was only 10% of that gang, or 30 people, were responsible for 100% of the criminal activity and decision making. Only 10%. The other 90% had an average gang membership of 2 to 3 years, and they all left for their own reasons. They found a girlfriend or a boyfriend. They were a victim of a crime. Their friend got killed. They were afraid because they were going to get killed. They got into college or university. Their parents moved. And every one of them that left faced no repercussion because the remaining 10% were happy for them. Said, go, you got something better in your life. However, that remaining 10%, statistically speaking, if you're over the age of 21, you're a gang member, the likelihood of you leaving are slim to none. I'm not saying they don't exist. What I'm saying is the chances are 21 years of 36 unaddressed risk factors. The likelihood of success from one single event is limited to none. And we spoke to some of the top investigators in Toronto Police Service and said, do you think this number is applicable here? And they all agreed. It's about 10% of the people that we're dealing with that are responsible for the majority of the crime. So for us, the lens should be focusing and identifying the 10% who we need to focus our heavy enforcement efforts on. Those special projects, the undercover projects, the finding people to tell us about what they're doing. We got to focus on the 10. But now we can identify who the 90 is. And if we can identify the 90, they don't necessarily need to be incarcerated or put in the criminal justice system. They might benefit from being referred or sent to social services that are evaluated that actually work. So there's always the 4 pillars: education, prevention, intervention, and suppression. And none of them are set in stone, which means that they should always evolve. Always, always, always need input and output of information. That being said, let's talk about that kid. Give me 1 second, sir. So let's talk about that kid, 0 to 18, 0 to 18. When you talk about how do we solve this, we found a gold model standard in the United States called the Comprehensive Gang Model. It's on our website at torontogangprevention.ca. Everything I referenced, all the publications, it's publicly available on there. Anybody can go and read it. The model we're looking to do, it's there. We have some small adjustments. And what that model says is you got to look at that kid and look at all the impact groups and all the people that they've come across that could have done something. And you got to incorporate them all on the same page. And we tried, and it's extremely difficult, but it's not impossible. And what they highlight is you need to focus on these people: schools, local service providers being social agencies, not-for-profit organizations, law enforcement being us, criminal justice entities being prosecution services, the courts, the jails, all the other legal side of things, municipal government being the City of Toronto. This strategy does involve the City of Toronto, community housing, a couple other city departments, provincial government being the province of Ontario, and then we have the federal government being Public Safety Canada. And what I can tell you is we've engaged every one of them over the last 3 years, and there is major support for this, but not everything's perfect.